Do not call Tottenham Hotspur Tottenham. At least that is what their brand playbook tells us. Wait a second. Brand playbook. We're 5 seconds into the video and the douchiness is already off the charts. Jesus, don't worry. We'll get back to this in due course. As for the Spurs name claims, they don't want broadcasters or media members calling them Tottenham, despite just about everyone in the known world using the North London district as a moniker for the football club. They then provide a list of what they deem to be acceptable names for their soccer team, and not among those was Tottenham. No word on if Daniel Levy, the Spurs chairman, dictated this email while singing out that old Ting Ting song. Don't call us Tottenham. Don't call us Spursy. Don't call us Hot to Trot. Don't call us Tottenham FC.
That's not my name. That's not my name.
So just how stupid, asinine, douchey is this request from Tottenham? Well, it would basically be like the San Antonio Spurs telling people only to refer to their team as the San Antonio Spurs, or SAS. It is, in other words, an absolutely absurd proposition. The club is going out of its way to minimize the location, its hometown. It wants to make that an afterthought. Come on, Dan. Who do you think you are, John Fisher in the Don't Call Us Sacramento A's? There is no bigger D-bag move in all of professional sports than removing the geographical identifier from your team's name if it has been there for over a century. Well, I mean, I guess you could go out and pull an MK Dons. That is douchier, all things considered. But this is right up there in terms of douchey moves you can do. Let's call a spade here. Tottenham Hotspur only exists because of Tottenham. Without the community's support and the fans who were born and bred Spurs in North London, they have nothing. No new stadium, no players, no TV contract, no revenues, no 1984 UEFA Cup, no 2008 League Cup, no Wande Ramos, good times there, no Vincent Janssen, no signing Jonathan Woodgate, a superbly talented but injury-prone center back to play alongside Ledley King, another superbly talented but injury-prone center back already on the club's books. I guess the hope was that one of them would be fit enough to partner Michael Dawson in the back line at any given moment, but I'm not quite sure that logic made any sense then, and especially not how it played out. No wonder St. Tottenham's Day was a thing for like a billion years running. Who wants to address real issues? Who wants to tackle the challenges that are currently holding Tottenham Hotspur Football Club back? Not when you can focus your time and resources on nonsense to solely make yourself feel important. And make no mistake, that is exactly what has happened here. Those running the club are trying to hide real issues by focusing on superfluous nonsense that only annoying douchebags would care about. Let's start by the fact that those at Tottenham Hotspur refer to their brand book or their brand style guide as a playbook. This is like quintessential douchebaggery 101. Make no mistake, these are important resources for company. I'm not anti-brand book. But they are also not a particularly big deal unless you work in the graphic design department of any given organization, or you need to understand what the brand is. If you're a copywriter, if you're someone who works with the company on a level that needs to ensure there is some sort of consistency in messaging or outward appearance. Make no mistake here, the only type of brand directors or managers or officers or whatever they want to be known as who focus on things as absolutely pointless, as nonsensical as renaming the brand style book or the brand guide are those who are just talentless hacks. Those who want to go to management and be able to say, hey, look, I did a thing. Glossing your organization's brand book as a playbook would be akin to Rand McNally calling their maps a choose your own adventure guide. It is overpromising the routine and then trying to frame it, trying to sell it to management as something bigger than it actually is. Then we have the contents of the email itself, which again reek of a desperate brand officer trying to do something that makes them seem important. Having worked with brand people of this ilk, I can tell you exactly how this entire ordeal went down. It starts with someone who lacks talent, who lacks common sense, but has the ability to sell themselves to the C level of any given company or organization. Those in the C-suite oftentimes don't know any better, but like said individual's positive attitude and vision, somehow that is enough to land them a job they are woefully unqualified for, because you have two people who don't know what they're doing coming together to just further the absolute stupidity here. Then, instead of undertaking any real work, making any progress progress or headway, this brand official will make a bunch of superficial changes that don't actually mean anything. Usually, what happens is that they upset people who know better. They upset people who've been working with the company and know the company's brand. However, leadership who doesn't know any better, and many of which probably haven't been there for that long themselves, just go like, oh, yeah, okay, cool, you're doing something, good stuff. These meaningless actions are noted as progress, even though the brand officer has actually contributed nothing to the brand and most likely doesn't even understand it. Don't believe me? I present to you Exhibit A, this email sent by the Premier League from Spurs officials that say the club is okay with using the acronym THFC when referring to Tottenham Hotspur. Here's the deal. I can't recall anyone ever using the THFC acronym when talking about Tottenham. Not media, not fans, no one really. And honestly, it's easier to say Tottenham than it is to say THFC. More ridiculous though, they don't want to be referred to as Tottenham Hotspur FC, despite the fact that THFC and Tottenham Hotspur FC are the same exact thing. If your football club is THFC, then it also has to be Tottenham Hotspur FC. Second, I'd argue Tottenham Hotspur FC is far more clearer and impactful from a branding perspective. People are going to know it because they know the Tottenham Hotspur name. Quite frankly, THFC sounds less believable than someone referring to Harchester United from the old Dream Team series as HU. Like, it could literally mean anything. At this point in time, it seems like the only ones who actually use the THFC moniker for Tottenham Hotspur are the Evening Standard. Well, that and really lame corporate partners. Meanwhile, the usage of Tottenham Hotspur FC actually goes back to at least 1904. That is one of the first mentions I've seen of a media outlet using Tottenham Hotspur FC, and it's continued all the way to this day. This isn't to say THFC is not present at all. I mean, the acronym was featured on the club crest during the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Honestly, though, it was really almost impossible to decipher given the font and layout choices used by the club. I personally don't hate those crests, but when I looked at it, the first thing wasn't, oh, look, it's THFC. It was like, what is all of these scribbly lines under the cock here? Anyway, Tottenham FC, by the way, also has been on the club's crest during the 70s. So it seems like even the club itself has used these terms, used these names interchangeably over the years. Now, maybe this is not the case of an incompetent brand officer gumming up the works by making some totally unnecessary change so they can make themselves feel important, like they have contributed to the success of the team. In soccer or football or whatever you want to call a sport, things like this rarely happen for no reason. They tend to be a part of a more long-term plan to pull off some corporate nonsense designed to make someone somewhere some more money. Let us look no further than the Barcelona kit. Once upon a time, Barcelona was never ever going to have a shirt sponsor. That space on the Barca kit, it was pure as the driven snow. Then the club that is more than a club backtracked to promote UNICEF, doing something for a good cause, wanting to give back. A few years later, they switched UNICEF to support the Qatar Foundation, another charitable cause, who also shared an incredibly similar name to Qatar Airways. And what do you know? 2 years later, it was the corporate sponsor on the front of those Barcelona shirts. And today, right now, well, Barcelona is more than happy selling out that space just like every other club in the world does. What started as a decision framed as good, as giving back, as charitable, was actually nothing more than a runway for Barcelona officials use to sell out. What's to say this isn't Tottenham's plan to redefine what their location is in order to appeal to a larger audience? First, you phase out the district, you make that secondary, and then maybe one day, all of a sudden, you start calling yourself London Hotspur, UK Hotspur. Maybe they just take out a place entirely. That certainly would make it easier to play home games anywhere they wanted. If you aren't Tottenham Hotspur, you don't need to be playing home games in Tottenham, do ya? More likely, though, I get the sneaking suspicion that Daniel Levy's end game here is to replace the Tottenham part of the club's name with a sponsor. It sounds crazy, but it's Spurs, like, come on. That space is where the real money is at. You see, Tottenham doesn't pay a dime for that prime real estate. And in the minds of the greedy pricks who run and continue to ruin the sport of soccer or football, well, why should they get something for free? If it can be sold, you should sell it. It may be only a matter of time before the club try to stylize themselves as the we buy any car Hotspur. Hell, they could always tap an old favorite and become the Manson.com poker and casino Spurs. Of course, the ironic thing here is that all of these would actually harm the club from a branding perspective. They are partnering with junk companies that no one really respects, and it would drag down the Tottenham Hotspur appearance, the identity with it. More importantly, though, not using the local identifier only harms the team standing in the local community. That is the rub, though.
Hi, I'm Dr. Marvin Rubdown.
No, not him. It's the decision that this is somehow going to improve the club's branding. In reality, it probably has nothing to do with that at all. On the contrary, this has the makings of shameless maneuvering driven by greed. And if the decision is really, truly about the Tottenham brand, well, that individual needs to be fired immediately because they are absolute butt at their job. Have Spurs secretly hired the yes men who told Hull City owner Asim Alam it was a good idea to rebrand their club as Hull Tigers? Let us never forget the fateful words he uttered trying to defend that god-awful bonehead move. Hull City is irrelevant. It is common. I want the club to be special. It is about identity. City is a lousy identity. Hull City Association Football Club is so long. He then went on to state, in a few years, many clubs will follow and change their names to something more interesting, and I will have proved I am a leader. Leader? Yeah, not so much. In fact, it took some 12 plus years for Spurs to do the same dumbass thing as you, and honestly, I think the results are going to end the same way, poorly. Those Hull City AFC supporters flatly rejected Alam's stupidity. It seems as if that will be the case here. A total unforced own goal from Tottenham leadership. Well played to those in charge of Spurs. You are nothing but a collection of douchebags. Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to learn about the story of Laurent Robert, soccer's last existentialist, we'll check out the video in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. And to understand why Europe's biggest football underdog was actually one of its most hated teams, well, that'll be the video in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. Until next time, I am Cheyenne Hollis. This is The Touchback, and as always, hashtag take it out the 25.
That's not my name.